All right, welcome to your next set of notes. Last time we talked about how the United States got these big chunks of territory, and this time we're talking about who went and settled there, right? Why did people go west? And you can see from the little tagline here is for gold, for God, and for glory, right? Lots of different reasons why people went out west. All right, so the first one we're going to talk about is the 49ers. With the Mexican cession, right, the United States acquired this big chunk of land, and it's also included California. And what happens is really about within the same month that California becomes part of the United States, someone discovers gold. And what ends up happening is it leads to this huge movement of people from the east across the land to the west coast, to California, in search of striking it rich, looking for that gold. Because this happened in 1849, those people who went out there became known as 49ers, right? That's why the San Francisco football team is the 49ers, right? So the term 49ers means somebody that went out in search for gold in California. In total, 200,000 people flocked to the area. Wasn't just all about the gold, right? The prices on things like food in land all of a sudden skyrocketed. Word would spread that someone found gold in one little area, and people would rush to that area to settle. That became known as a boom town. Overnight, the area would boom, and all of a sudden, right, there would be a nice little populated town there. But when others didn't find gold in the area, they would leave. And then these boom towns became known as ghost towns. They would be deserted. By 1855, the gold rush was over, but a lot of people stayed in the area and farmed, right, started small economy, businesses, things like that, which is why California today has the largest population in the nation, right? It's a huge state, both land and population, but it really started off very largely populated because everyone went there to find gold. All right, here's a quick little video on the gold rush from the History Channel.
Gold was actually found by Mexicans in the 1830s in a couple different spots, Southern California, but not the gold fields that we associate with the gold rush. The Mexicans had no idea, of course, that gold of the amount discovered in the 1850s and 1860s actually existed there. But before California becomes a state, it's discovered. And it's one of those transforming episodes in the American past, and the rush is on.
The gold rush is maybe the classic American story. One of the funny things about the gold rush is that very few people actually made any money from gold itself.
In Gold Rush, California, success followed a willingness to try and fail, and try and fail, and try and fail. In New England, where American culture originated, there wasn't a tolerance of failure like this. Failure was equated with sin and with moral failing. In California Gold Rush, none of that applied. Everybody understood that luck was as much a factor in success as anything else.
The lure of quick money has just had an enormous attraction for the new America at that time.
The scramble for mineral wealth, which is extremely ugly. It involves the rape of the countryside, the exploitation of Mexicans, the extermination of local tribes, the mistreatment of Asians who come in as laborers and are also very badly treated in the mines, the terrible loss of life and impoverishment of the people who go out and dig the stuff.
This was a signal event that transformed the landscape, it transformed the demography of California in the West, and one could argue was a seismic shift in American history of the mid-19th century.
Ironically, the great breakthrough of the gold rush was not creating fortunes from this precious metal down in the hills of California. It was, in a sense, the invention of California itself. I mean, it made this extraordinary city, San Francisco, and got enough people to move all the way out there that the state was able to really kind of turn into the extraordinary creature that it is today.
All right, I think that's a good video that shows you kind of how California develops out of this gold rush. And here's just another example, guys. Boomtown, right? When everybody moves in, so I think they found gold in the area. Places booming, large population, business thriving. Then it turns into a ghost town, right? One of those deserted towns in the middle of the desert, right, where nobody lives. You got the image of the tumbleweed going by. And that's because, after a while, there's no more gold. People get up and leave. Okay, so the Mormons, the next big group of people who go out west is this religious group known as the Mormons. The Mormons were started by Joseph Smith of Palmyra, New York, and he was said to have been given a set of gold plates by an angel. And these gold plates expand upon the Bible and tell stories of Jesus and the American continent, along with a lot of other different things. Joseph Smith developed a huge number of believers. The issue here was one of the things that they practiced back then, which is not true today, but they believed in polygamy, or this notion of plural marriage, meaning that a man could marry more than one woman. Like I said, this is not practiced today in Mormonism, but at the time it was, and that meant that a lot of people weren't always happy about this Mormon religion and having these Mormon people come in and settle near them, right? We're talking about a traditional Christian society, and this was kind of out there for that era. So they were persecuted, and really what ended up happening is that they wanted to get out. So they left New York and went to Illinois for a while. When they were in Illinois, they thought they could practice their religion freely, but they found that wasn't necessarily the case. Joseph Smith is killed in Illinois on the journey. So after he dies, this guy named Brigham Young takes over, and he leads the people out into what will later be the Mexican Cession and this area by the Great Salt Lake, which becomes the Great Salt Lake City in Utah. And even today, guys, this is basically the home base for Mormons, right? The Mormon religion still centers around the city of Salt Lake City in Utah. This map here, right, the darker green, the more Mormons living in that area. So you can really see that even by today's standards, right, out west is where most of the Mormons in this country live. Okay, the picture below represents what? Is it a ghost town, a boom town? Is it Salt Lake City, or is it the Oregon Trail? And here you can see that really this represents a boom town. There's economy, people, right? There's life in the city. It's not deserted yet. Okay, what makes the gold rush so significant? Thousands became rich, it causes a war with Mexico, creates a population boom in California, or it encourages Americans to expand their territory further. Okay, and really we know that it creates a population boom in California. And which is not true of the Mormon religion. They believe in Jesus, they were started by Joseph Smith, they practice polygamy, it's no longer a practicing religion. Okay, the first three are correct. It's this bottom one here, they're no longer practicing religion. That's incorrect. There are still many, many Mormons living around the world today. Okay, so James K. Polk, in his 4 years as president, he expands the country from ocean to ocean. He ran on a platform of, I'm only going to serve one term, and in the 4 years, I'm going to make the country go all the way out west to the Pacific Ocean. And he did. Lo and behold, he was successful. Now our country needed to be connected. People as well as goods and supplies had to be moved from the East Coast to the West. Many times people who went west were families. A lot of these families traveled in these things called covered wagons. They traveled 2,000 miles on this long Oregon Trail in wooden wagons pulled by oxen. Many died on the journey, but those who survived used this way of travel to start a new life in the West. Most of the people that went into Oregon and really into California and Utah used this mode of transportation early on. It was the most efficient way to get across the continent. All right, canals. Canals are the other opportunity that people had to travel and move goods. It's a lot easier to pull things over water than it is over land. But the problem was rivers don't always go where you need your things to go. So they built canals, which are basically man-made rivers that used oxen walking along the shore to pull their barge or boat down the water. The most famous canal in the United States is the Erie Canal, which connects the Great Lakes to New York City. The problem with canals is that they were really expensive to build, both in money and in lives. Lots of times it would involve literally blowing the sides of mountains off and things like that to get this flat canal to go all the way through. Faster than, so the other next transportation improvement that we're going to talk about is railroads. Railroads, I'm pretty sure most of you are familiar with, you've at least seen a railroad. They're faster than canals, and they're a lot easier to build. But they were also a little more dangerous due to derailments, which were really common at the time. They used steam-powered engines, coal-powered engines later on, right, to move these goods across the land using this rail system. Railroads connected the north, south, east, and west, mostly in the northeast. Early on, most of the railroads were located in the northern and eastern part of the country because they were more industrialized and they had more of a need to transport goods. Eventually, a railroad connects all the way across east to west, the Transcontinental Railroad, which can then bring people and goods all the way across the country without using a covered wagon. Okay, here's just a picture. There's the covered wagon. There would be the canal. There's the path that would pull the boats along the canal. And here is a very early example of a train engine. How did the Oregon Trail change America? It helped Americans navigate west. It led to war with Mexico, forced Native Americans to relocate, and it hurt the economy in the west. Okay, obviously here the answer is A. And what was an advantage of the railroad over the canal? Railroads were more safe. Railroads were very expensive to build compared to canals. Railroads were easier to build. President Polk publicly questioned canals. And we know that the answer here is C. Railroads were much easier to build. Okay, let's not forget our margins and our reflection, and we'll see you next time.